Hi, this is Wojtek again, and today we are recording another video from the series Witnessing to Jehovah Witnesses. And today we are focusing on this very old subject about the generation that will never die before the end of the world happens. This is pretty old teaching of Jehovah Witnesses. It started in 1918 and was taught until recently. Well, actually, they still teach that, but the problem with this is they are very consistent in teaching on the generation. It's just like the time is running short, so they start do a little variation to what this generation is. They start changing a little bit to catch up more time because if you count that because the whole thing was that they predicted that the generation that saw the events of 1914, which was the setup of kingdom, Jesus' kingdom. Totally, I don't know where they get from this, but there's Bible evidences that they figured that out. They said that those who saw those days, they will not die. Some of those will not die until the time is fulfilled and the end of the world of the system has happened and a new system will be set up by God. So if you count 1914 and 2016, we have 102 years. So not many people left, especially Jehovah Witnesses. And if you say that there will have to be some kind of unconscious what is happening, that there will be 110, 115, whatever. So there'll be those who just were born there. So they got the time is running short on them, so they had to do something about it. So let me show you today what they did, because as we all know, the faithful slave, the anointed one, is the only channel of the truth between God and the organization. They have all the truth that is needed, and the truth and only truth. They never lie because their truth is directly from God. That was lie. I actually lied. They never say the truth. That's the truth. They are false teachers. They are false prophets. But let me show you. Let me show you what they do. So let me start with this. I'm gonna read a few books. Be patient with me. I have a lot of I have a lot of videos that you can go and watch. Just subscribe to my account, or just simply write my name, Wojtek W, and put on search and search for it. You can get playlists with all my videos. A lot of videos witnessing to Jehovah Witnesses, to Mormons, to Catholics, Muslims, to unbelievers. So you can actually check them out. But so I'm going to read a lot of their own publishings, and so some of them I already read before in different videos. So be patient if you've heard, because you'll learn something new, I'm sure. Because the very last one I'm gonna read is just like boom, like a big knockout piece. So. I just got this, so to me it was like, wow, now we're talking. So be patient. Let me start with this. This is the actually very cool book to get. This is Jehovah Witnesses, Proclaimers of God's Kingdom. Well, it's a pretty thick book. This is about their history, how they did, and if you get this book, there's a lot of information. I got it on eBay, and a lot of information that I actually put in this book that they rather not put it. I think they took it out of use very quickly because they realized there's a lot of things that they are not really great for them. So anyway, this book on a page 425 in a paragraph, an intriguing subject. Okay, this is the paragraph, intriguing subject, page 425. We read this. I just gonna read a little small portion to show you how it started, and we're gonna go chronologically with years. What an exciting message they proclaimed, the Jehovah Witnesses. Millions now living will never die. That was the message. Brother Rutherford had given a discourse on this, and Brother Rutherford is the second president of the organization after the first Charles Russell died. Rutherford became a president in 1917, and this is 1918. He gave this discourse and about millions now living will never die, and this was the subject. In 1918 he gave this discourse. It was also the title of this booklet, 128 pages booklet published in 1920, and this is the booklet. This is the booklet. Pretty cheap paper, that's why this booklet is pretty beat up, but this is the message they gave. Millions now living will never die, and they go on and explain all those things, that how the Bible tells them that 1914, the whole point was those who see the day of 1914, the setting up the kingdom for Christ, was this generation of this who experienced this 1914 day. They will never die until the end of the times, the end of the system, the world, and the new system set up. So that's the whole idea with this generation. Okay, so let me read this again. The Brother Rutherford gave this discourse on the subject in 1918. It was also the title of this 128-page booklet, this one, published in 1920. From 1920 through 1925, the same subject was featured again and again around the world in public meetings in all areas where the speakers were available, and in upward of 30 languages. So it was a big thing that the world is ending within this generation. So everybody were waiting for it. And on the next page we read this. The printed page was used to reach millions of the people who previously had only hearsay acquaintance with the Bible students and the message that they proclaimed. And here are some pictures. You see, here are some pictures of. You see, this is the page. The advertised, the millions now living will never die, and some other advertisements, and so, and they go on and they say about this millions now living and never die. So they started with millions now living will never die. This generation will see the end. That was the beginning. Okay, then years went by. Okay, years went by, and so what they start to go. What is this? What I'm going to read now is the Watchtower magazine. This is in a bound form, so this is the whole year, but we're going to read a little paragraph from the page, from the Watchtower magazine from May 1st, 1967. May 1st, 1967. And this is in the article, Where are we according to God's timetable? Where are we according to God's table? And this is on a page 259. 259, May 1st, 1967. And then on the end of this article we find a little paragraph that is titled here you go, the end of 6,000 years. End of 6,000 years. And actually this is interesting because this paragraph, they made a lot of predictions, and these later on they said that the end of the world will be in 1975. And actually this article speaks of that, and we have this 1975 here included. But I'm not going to read this part. I'm just going to focus on this generation. So here we go. Page 262. We read this. Jesus said that this generation that saw the beginning of this time period in 1914 would also see the end. The generation that was old enough to view those events with understanding. So old enough to view with understanding, it could be 5, 6, 7 years old. Right, pretty young to see to understand the events. Let's say 7 years old. So the generation that was old enough to view those events with understanding in 1914 is no longer young. It no longer has many years to run. Already many of its members have died. But Jesus showed that there would still be members of this generation alive at the time of the passing away of this wicked system of things in both heaven and earth. Okay, I want you to notice two things. First of all, they say old enough. That means the young children, okay? And they say also they drop the millions. They drop the millions. Now they say what they say show that there would still be members of this generation. So they drop the million and they put members. I mean, just make a mark of members. So here's a small change, but so you know that, so they look good. So there's not millions now, but there's members. Okay, so let's go to next. And this is a little book. Here you go. This is Did Man Get Here by Evolution or by Creation? Okay, this is a little book printed in 1967, and on the page 171 we read this, and this is the article, a paragraph of which is titled "Not Much Longer." So, not much longer. Okay, and we read this: the end of all the chaotic conditions in this system of things will not be delayed. But when will it come? Question. After enumerating the many unpleasant conditions marking this time of the end, Jesus added the key thought: this generation will by no means pass away until these things occur. Which generation did he mean? The one that would see the beginning of the vows he mentioned. Thus, the generation living in 1914 can expect to see the end of this wicked system of things. And then next page it says, let me just read a little bit here. It is to be careful noted that the youngest of those who saw and with understanding, so they still go the youngest of those with understanding. So they still could be 6, 7, 8 years old. They have, those guys have already a lot of understanding. So it is to be careful noted that the youngest of those who saw with understanding the developing signs of the last days from their start in 1914 are now well over 60 years of age. This is from 1967, I think, the book. So they are still over 60 years of age. The greater part of the adult generation of that time is now well along toward its complete passing away. The time left then is definitely limited. It is very short. Note that and goes on and that. So now they still hold. They drop these millions. They still hold that those young enough to understand, which could be a little, few years old. Now we go to 1975. Remember, that was the date that they predicted the world will end, but that just and this is Awake magazine. This is Awake magazine. Awake magazine, 1975. This is from July 8, 1975, Awake magazine. On a page 29, we have this article that is called Watching the World. Watching the World. Watching the World, okay? And that's a small part here I'm gonna read. If so are we going chronological? I mean, like, we're going from the beginning to this times now. So that was 67, now it's 75, right? So we go this. If one assumes that you must be 10 years old, so now they actually stated 10 years. You're not young enough, now they go to 10 years old, at least 10 years old. So if one assumes that you must be 10 years old, or even for events to make a lasting impression observed, the News World report recently, only 9%, and go on and go on. Jesus Christ predicted that the generation that saw such global conflict of First World, which is the start of tribulation, and what followed, will by no means pass away until God's kingdom rule asserts itself fully over mankind. So in this little thing, I didn't read the whole thing, it's just a little confusing, but in here they already set the minimum 10 years old, right? And so to see those, to understand those things, and yes, okay. So let's go to now. There was 75. This is now 1980. So Watchtower magazine, 1980, 1980, and this is October 15, 1980. October 15, 1980. And this is in on a page 31 in questions from the readers, and they ask some question there, and there's the answer. Okay, this is how that looks like. Questions from the readers, and let me read this. What then is the generation that will by no means pass away until all these things occur? It does not refer to a period of time, which some have tried to interpret as 30, 40, or 70, or even 120 years, but rather it refers to people, the people living at the beginning of pangs of distress for this condemned world system. It's the generation of people who saw the catastrophic events that broke forth in the connection with the World War I, 1914 onward. And then it goes, if you assume that 10, the age 10, is the age at which an event creates a lasting impression. They pretty much repeat what the other one said. Lasting impression on person's memory, then there are today more than 13 million Americans that have recollection of the World War I. And if the wicked system of things of this world survived until the turn of the century, which is highly improbable in view of the world trends and the fulfillment of the Bible prophecy, there would still be survivals of the World War I generation. However, the fact that their number is dwindling is one more indication that the conclusion of the system of things is moving fast towards its end. So you see, they dropped the millions, they dropped many. Now there will be still some, those at least 10 years old, and it will not happen by the turn of century. It may happen sooner because they ran out of time, so they are hoping so it happen now. Let's go to the year 1984 Watchtower magazine again. And the Watchtower magazine, actually this is pretty cool because Watchtower magazine from 1984, May 15, 1984, that was the cover page. Here you go. 1914, the generation that will not pass away. This is the cover page of the Watchtower magazine. And then this was from May 15, 1984. And then on the page 5 of this, actually on the page 4 of this magazine, we have pretty much copy of that first cover page. This is the title of the article, 1914, the generation will never pass away. And this article, we read this in this article. Here we go. If Jesus used generation in that sense, actually they go and explain pretty much like we read before, that some people try to figure it out in 30 years, 40 years, whatever the generation is. So they go there. So these definitions embrace both those born around the time of historic event and those alive at that time. If Jesus used generation in that sense and we apply it to 1914, then the babies of that generations are now 70 years old or older, and others alive in 1914 are in their 80s and 90s, a few even having reached 100. There are still many millions of generations alive. Some of them will by no means pass away until the things occur. So they have this little comeback to this millions things. They try to catch it up, but the first was most likely anyway, they try to catch up with the first idea, but they still try to say that it will happen very soon. Maybe there will be millions still alive. So let me pass on this. I don't even know what to say on this. But this book right here, this is the Peace and Security. How can you find it? How can you find it? 1986, okay? 1986, on the page 83, we have a paragraph that is titled, "This generation will not pass away." This generation will not pass away. 83, page 83. And on the page 84, we read this. Jesus Jesus did give a helpful time indicator when he said this generation will by no means pass away until all these things occur. Thus all the various features of the sign as well as the great tribulation must take place within the lifetime of one generation. The generation of 1914. This means that some persons who observed the events of 1914 when the conclusion of system of things began would still be alive to see its end when the Great Tribulation strikes. Those who remember the events of 1914 are getting up in years now. Most of their number have already died. But Jesus assures us that this generation will by no means pass away until all this wicked system things will stop and whatever. So you see, I'm reading all this just to show you how persistent they were in teaching this generation that will not pass away. They start making little changes, making sure that that they still having time to grab it. But also there's I don't know if I can find it, but they do it over the years. The Awake magazine, I was just reading one here. Starting from 82 to 95, they were also on the back of the cover of the Awake magazine. There was a little paragraph that said why Awake magazine is printed, and they were saying something why it's printed, and because so those who saw the 1914 will not pass away, whatever. But they were very persistent in proclaiming this truth. Okay, and I have just 3 more things to read, and now we're coming to the Jews, okay, to the Jews of these teachings. So it was not, there was actually I was telling you that in Awake magazine until 1995 they were writing this about this generation not passing away, and they stopped. And I was starting to search why they stopped, and in the Watchtower magazine 1995 I found the reason why they stopped printing this message in the Awake magazine, because they print 2 magazines, Awake and the Watchtower. So Awake stopped, and right next month after they stopped, we found this in Watchtower magazine. We found this article that gives us the reason why. And this is the reason why. Because they started to running out of time, and they start getting worried what is going to happen, how we're going to look, our prediction doesn't go true, we must be false prophets, and we are not, we are channel of truth. So we get the truth, we got the information from the Bible, and we got this information right because we are getting the truth from God, from Jehovah. So we are right. But the time is running out, so we have to adjust. We have to adjust because we didn't get the truth. We had to learn about the truth, and we didn't have a guidance. But we are told we had guidance, but somehow we didn't follow or something because we are running out of time. So anyway, so in November 1st magazine from 1995, there is an article that is titled "A Time to Keep Awake." Okay, time to keep awake. This is in Watchtower magazine, page 16, November 1st, 1995. And on page 17, I'm going to read a little paragraph here. Eager to see the end of this evil system, Jehovah's people have at times speculated about the time when the Great Tribulation would break out, even tying this to calculations of what is the lifetime of generations since 1914. However, we bring a heart of wisdom in. However, we bring the heart of wisdom in, not by speculating about how many years of days. I thought they don't have to use wisdom. They are the channel of the truth between Jehovah and the people. So they should get the truth. They don't have to use wisdom. They get the truth. Well, if they can use wisdom and learn about the truth, then everybody else could. But nobody can, only they. So everybody has to look to them, so they get truth from them, because they are the only channel of communication. That means nobody can get the truth from reading the Bible. Only they can get the truth. Somehow, sometimes they get the truth not really truthfully, and they have to change the truth for different truth, because the first truth wasn't truth, it was lie, and then they get the new truth. So, but that's some other thing. So anyway, so let me read this again. So eager to see the end of the evil system, Jehovah people had at times speculated about the time when the Great Tribulation would break out, even tying this to calculation of what is the lifetime of the generation of 1914. However, we bring the heart of wisdom in by speculating about how many years or days make up generation, but by thinking about how we count our days in bringing joyful praise to Jehovah. Rather than provide a rule for measuring time, the term generation as used by Jesus refers principally to contemporary people of a certain historical period with their identifying characteristics. And then, therefore, in a final fulfillment of Jehovah's prophecy today, this generation apparently refers to the peoples of earth who see the signs of Christ's presence but fail to mend their ways. And thus, no human can say when the end will be, but we know that the end of this generation of wicked people will come once the witnesses has been given to God's satisfaction to the most distant parts of the earth. When the global witnesses has been accomplished to the extent Jehovah purposes, it will be his day and hour to dispose of this world system. We do not need to know the date in advance. So now they run away from actually setting any dates to setting any period of times. They just say nobody knows when that will happen. It will happen. We just stay away from giving any this generation that how long time, and I mean, so they try to cut themselves off completely from this idea. So that was 1995. That's why they stopped printing this message of last generation in Awake magazine on the back of the cover of the magazine, which started in 1982 until 1995, every Awake magazine. And we got this in 1997 now, 1997 Watchtower magazine. And we have this in June 1st, 1997, in a questions from the readers. Questions from the readers, okay. From page 28, June 1st, 1987. The end of the question, I mean, there was a question and then there was an answer, and the end says this. So the recent information in the Watchtower about this generation did not change our understanding of what occurred in 1914, but it did give us a clearer grasp of Jesus' use of the term generation, helping us to see that his usage was no basis for calculating or counting from 1914 how too close the end we are. How too close to the end we are. So they try to cut themselves off from any calculations, how long the generation, how long it will just lie. We don't know, nothing. The first truth was lie or not truth. We didn't know. We were just expecting, hoping. They used those words. We were just hoping, having expectations. We were like just having ideas, expecting this to happen. But they forget that they are channel of the truth between God and the people, so they should have the truth. If this is truth, what they say they have the truth, and this shouldn't be like maybe probably sometimes whatever. But here is the gem. Here is the gem. So obviously they decided that cutting themselves off from this is not a good idea, because too many years of the same message doesn't look pretty good if you totally cut yourself out of what you were saying for years. So now they came with another idea what this generation might mean. And this is the book that is published in 2014, so it's very fresh book. We have 2016 now, so this is the very fresh book. You can actually walk into the Watchtower, into the Kingdom Hall, and ask if they have this book so they can give it. That's what I did. I went and they gave it to me. They gave this book to me, and this is for free. And bunch of Watchtower magazines. You can ask, you just say, I heard that you give those magazines free. Yeah, sure. They give you how many you want, and you can ask for this book, and they will give you this book. And this is the God's Kingdom Rules. God's Kingdom Rules. Okay, and on this, and there's a lot of things. I just recorded another video using this book. It's just mind-blowing. By the way, you can watch my other videos by subscribing to my account. I have a whole bunch of videos, and I show there how to witness to Jehovah Witnesses, to Mormons, Catholics, whatever people. And you can just simply also just write my name, Wojtek W, put on a search and go to my playlist and find those videos, or just subscribe and find them there. But this book is this is the funny part of all this thing. So God's Kingdom Rules, God's Kingdom Rules. Okay, on the page 11, on the page 10 we have this article, the paragraph that is titled "When Will God's Kingdom Come?" Okay, this is the when will God's kingdom come? Okay, and we have this, and so let me read a little bit of here. We have ample proof that Jesus' prophecy had been undergoing fulfillment since 1914. Hence, that year marked the start of his presence and the establishment of the kingdom. And now there is another paragraph that says this generation, and it says, actually it says also, Jesus indicated that the kingdom would come after this generation witnessed the fulfillment of the prophetic sign. And now we have, here it says generation, and this paragraph explains the generation. Now listen to that. So, therefore, when Jesus spoke of this generation, he had in mind his anointed followers. Okay? Before, it was like this generation, whole world, millions. Back then, there was only like few thousands of Jehovah Witnesses. So when they said millions now living will never die, they talk everybody. Now they say, therefore, when Jesus spoke of this generation, he had in mind his anointed followers. And that also means only those 144,000. Okay. And verse 18 says, how then may we understand Jesus' words about this generation? The generation consists of two overlapping groups of anointed ones. The generation consists of two overlapping groups of anointed ones. Two overlapping now. The first is made up of anointed ones who saw the beginning of the fulfillment of the sign of 1914, and the second, anointed ones who for a time were contemporaries of the first group. So now they're gaining time of another generation. That's awesome, because there's another many years ahead. This is awesome idea. Actually, this is the truth. This is the truth. The channel of communication of the truth brought this new flash of light. This new flash of light told them how to lie better. So now they know the better lie, because the generation is two generations that overlap. That means the one generation dies out, but the other is still on living. And then might be another generation that overlaps, and it might be going for 3,000 years from now on. But let's see what they say now. So, these contemporaries of the first group. At least some of those in the second group will live to see the beginning of the coming tribulation. The two groups from one generation, because the two groups form one. So two generations form one generation. How about three? How about seven? Two groups form one generation because their lives are, as anointed Christians, overlapped for a time. That's the explanation. This is how it happened. The two groups from one generation, because their lives as anointed Christians overlapped for a time. So this is one generation, those two generations, because they overlapped. But if another comes and overlaps with this one, they will be extended, I guess. Because that's how it works. That's the truth. The new flash of light came. So verse 19 says, what may we conclude? Question. Well, we know that the sign of Jesus' presence in kingdom power is clearly evident around the globe. We also see that the anointed ones who are still alive and part of this generation are getting on in years. Yet, they will not all die off before the Great Tribulation begins, because there will be another generation overlapping with this generation. Therefore, we can conclude that very soon, indeed, God's kingdom will come and exercise his rule over the earth. And here's the gem. They even made a picture to explain visually how one generation overlaps the other generation, making totally one generation. And this is the picture. Here you go. Do you see this? This is the old generation, and this is the new generation that overlaps the old generation. So we got actually two generations overlapping each other. That means this generation gonna still go on living, and then might overlap with the third generation. But here it is. Okay, this generation, and let me read what it says. Okay, it says this: the first group, the anointed ones who saw the beginning of the fulfillment of the sign in 1914. This is it. And the second one says, the second group, anointed ones who were contemporaries of the first group. Some of these will live to see the great tribulation. That means this first group will drop dead. The second group will be alive. Unless there'll be a third group that overlap with this group, that this group will drop dead, and a third group will still be alive to see the events. Because that will be still the same generation, because they will overlap with this generation that saw that generation. Jehovah Witnesses, just run. These people brainwash you. They try to destroy your spirits, destroy your souls. They try to mislead you, misguide you to destruction. You need to put your faith in Jesus Christ. You're not in your governing body. Forget the governing body. You need Christ in your life. Repent of your sins. Put your faith in Jesus Christ alone and trust Him, and don't believe what they teach. Believe what the Bible says. Start reading the Bible on your own without the guidance of Jehovah Witnesses. Start to study yourself. You will see how misguided you are. Just unblock yourself, because you are tunneled. You are tunneled in a way of thinking that they lead you through the false doctrines, explaining to you the falsities of their teaching in a way that just like put tunnel vision on your eyes and enslave you to their teachings, to the organization, to the governing body. There are false prophets. You need to find the truth that comes from the Word of God alone, not from their false teachings. Start reading the Bible. Put your faith in Jesus Christ. Pray to God for enlightenment and for better understanding of the truth. And you will see that you have eternal spirit who will answer to God. You will see that there is not an earthly paradise, that there is going to be a new heaven, that there is going to be a new earth, that there is Jesus Christ who is the second person of the Trinity. This is lie what they tell you, that you cannot go to heaven because you're not the anointed one. When if you look in John 1:12, it tells you that if you believe, you become a child of God. Everyone, not only 144,000. Just think of this. Open Revelation on chapter 7:14. I think this is it, where they speak of this 144,000. And think of this. Think of this. They say that the Revelation says that 144,000 of the anointed, and then it gives you 12 tribes of 12,000 each. Okay? And your organization tells you that those 12,000 each of each tribe are the figurative numbers. But they tell you that this 144,000 is a literal number. Tell me, in which language? English or Greek that New Testament was written? You can use figurative speech and literal speech in the same sentence, speaking of the same thing. You can't. You either make 144,000 and 12 tribes literal, all of them, both, or they both are figurative. So how come you allow yourself to be brainwashed and accepted their false teaching that 144,000 is a literal number of anointed ones, but those 12 tribes of 12,000 each, which makes 144,000, are not literal but figurative? They speak of the same thing, same sentence. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. The whole organization doesn't make sense. Run. Leave them alone. Put your faith in Jesus Christ. Put your faith in His Word, in the Bible. And don't read this, the worst ever translation, if you even can call it translation, because it's so twisted, so changed, the New World Translation. Take any Bible but this, and you'll see the truth coming from it. You'll see that Jesus is God. You'll see that you have a Holy Spirit in you if you are a believer. Subscribe to my account. Watch my other videos. There's a lot of information on those videos. Who is Jesus? Who is God? What is Trinity? What about our soul, our spirit? What about false prophecies?